Now, so we mentioned the person that does the Hajj al-Ifrad. The Hajj al-Ifrad is what type of Hajj? The Hajj al-Ifrad. What's Hajj al-Ifrad? But what is Hajj al-Ifrad generally though? Hajj al-Ifrad.
Hajj al-Ifrad, the one who make qurbani after the Tahrim al-Thani.
Nah, but there's something specific about the Hajj though. What's the difference between the Hajj al-Ifrad or Hajj al-Tamattu and the Hajj al-Kiran? What's the difference between what's specific about Hajj al-Ifrad?
Hajj al-Ifrad يوم الثمانية ما في يعني مش قران تمتع في يوم الثمانية يعني يحلها بعدين يوم الثمانية يبدأوا بالإحرام.
يبدأ بالإحرام؟
الإفراد ما عنده.
نعم نور معه. Hajj al-Ifrad. طيب, we'll quickly go through the three types of Hajj. So your Hajj Tamattu is what? Where you do Umrah first, then you come out of Ihram, then you go back into Ihram for Hajj. Hajj al-Kiran is what?
Hajj al-Kiran, the one
you do the Umrah first, then you do not come out of Ihram, you continue and you stay in that same Ihram and you can do the Hajj. Hajj al-Ifrad is where there's no Umrah first, it's just Hajj. Naam, it's just Hajj. So with this now, when it comes to the fact that it's just Hajj, the person, when they are completed the days of the Ayyam al-Tashriq, the days of Tashriq, then they do an action of the cutting of the hair, or cutting whatever's left of the hair. Naam. And this is what's mentioned, where the person puts the shaving cream over their head and runs the blade over it and takes whatever's left of it. Naam. The reason why we mentioned that is because the person would have shaved their head before as well. Because we mentioned the shaving of the hairs of the 5 actions. Naam. Why also is it, we discussed as well, why is it better for the person to shave their hair and not just cut it and shorten it? Whilst it's permissible to cut and shorten, why is it better for him to shave the hair?
Because the sale of the Prophet, that is blessed. The one who cuts his hair.
But it's not necessarily that, no. Not necessarily that. Something to do with the dua of the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, we mentioned.
يشيب مرتين يرحم مرتين واللي قصر مرة.
مرتين بس؟
ما أنا سمعت مرتين والله.
أيوة لا 3 مرات. For the one that shaved the hair 3 times. I made dua for them 3 times. As for the one that shortens, once. No. So due to this, then they say that the fadl, there's virtue in the one that shaves the head. Allah Ta'ala a'lam. So, as for today, then we have the mentioning of the actions after that, and it's regarding the individual performing the tawaf without. And so he mentions لم يخرج حتى يودع البيت بالطواف عند فراغه من جميع أموره حتى يكون آخر عهده بالبيت. نعم. And so he doesn't leave Mecca until he performs the tawaf. So tawaf al-wida'. فنشتغل بعده بالتجارة أعاده ويستحب له إذا طاف أن يقف في ملتزم بين الركن والباب. And so with this, a person, if he becomes busy doing something in Mecca again, so let's say for example he tends to leave Mecca, and then because he tends to leave Mecca after he's done all of the actions of Hajj, now he performs the tawaf, now the farewell tawaf. And then with that, that is understood to be his final actions in Mecca. From the final action he does in Mecca. However, if he was to perform that tawaf, and then he becomes busy with something again, for example, Ibn Qudama mentioned the example of tijara. He gets busy with business, trade. Then what is mustahab, that which is recommended for him to do, is to do the tawaf again. Naam, why? Why is it recommended for him to do the tawaf again, as mentioned?
He stay. He back to stay.
Because he's going to stay.
For something else.
Naam, because he stayed again. And why? Because that tawaf should be what? His final action. So if the tawaf is his final action, if he's ended up doing another action after that, then what is better for him to do is to perform that tawaf again, in order to make that tawaf his final action before leaving Mecca. Naam. However, this is mustahab as mentioned. So if he did perform the tawaf with the intent of that being his final action, however he becomes busy again, he still fulfilled that tawaf. He still fulfilled it. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Now, thereafter he makes dua, where it says the salah on the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then Ibn Qudama mentions, فَمَنْ خَرَجَ قَبْلَ الْوَدَاعِ رَجَعَ إِلَيْهِ إِنْ كَانَ قَرِيبًا. So whoever was left before performing the tawaf al-wada'. So he leaves and he doesn't perform that tawaf. Then in kana qariban, if he's still close by, he needs to go back and perform the tawaf. Naam, if he's still close by. When kana ba'ud, or in ba'ud, afwan, ba'atha bid-dam. However, if he's gone further away, then what is upon the individual is a dam. And we refer to a dam in dam blood, essentially. When referring to blood, with this discussion around the affairs of Hajj, and the manasik al-Hajj, then what is it referring to? If we say that alayhi bid-dam, upon him is blood, referring to what? Sacrifice. Naam. Yani? The animal, not people. So they mentioned dam, so of course the sacrifice of an animal. Naam. So that clear, ikhwan, the surah. So a person, he's left Mecca. He's left Mecca and he hasn't performed his tawaf. What he should do is return. If he's close enough to return. So essentially, if he's in any of the mudun or the qura, in the towns or the cities that are close, regardless of being close by, then he returns. Naam. However, let's say for example, he's from here, he's from Britain, and he's not performed the tawaf, he's come back to Britain. Naam. He can't now say, I'm just going to quickly go back to Mecca and perform the tawaf, of course. So, in that scenario, alayhi bidam. Then in that scenario, he does the slaughter. Naam, in place of that. And then Ibn Qudama mentions, إِلَّا الْحَائِدْ وَالنُّفَسَاء فَلَا وَدَاءَ عَلَيْهِمَا وَيُسْتَحَبْ لَهُمَا الْوُقُوفِ عِنْدَ الْبَابِ الْمَسْجِدِ وَالدُّعَاء. And as for the haid, so the woman that is on her menses, or the woman that has the postnatal bleeding, then there's no farewell tawaf for her. Rather, that which is recommended for her to do is to perform dua or make dua at the door of the Masjid al-Haram. So she doesn't enter the masjid, she stays at the bab and makes dua. She supplicates. And this is what is understood from this particular affair. Allah Ta'ala knows best. And that concludes what we were discussing from this chapter. Wallahu Ta'ala a'lam. After that we have the chapter Bab Arkan al-Hajj wal-Umrah. So the chapter pertaining to the arkan, the pillars of Hajj wal Umrah. Naam. And what is understood by as a pillar? We discussed this previously, or better, we've discussed this a few times now. Specifically when we're discussing the salawat. We mentioned there's in terms of the salawat, the prayers, there's shurut, conditions, there are arkan, there are pillars, and then there are wajibat, obligations. What's the difference between them? So essentially first, what's the difference between a shart, a condition, and a rukn, a pillar? What's the difference between these two? Therefore? The difference between a shart and a rukn. In terms of the salah, you said if it's a rukn, if you miss it, it's to repeat the salah. So the shart, if you miss it, the prayer is naqis. No. You have to repeat it. So then what's the difference then between a shart and a rukn?
The shart you have to have from the beginning to the end of the prayer. It should be facing the qibla.
No.
Whereas
The rukn
is an action that's performed within the prayer.
No. So a shart, a condition, is present from the beginning of an action all the way through the action. Now, so the shart, the condition, is present from the beginning of the action all the way through the action. The example given by the brother Abdulhakeem is facing the qibla. You have to face the qibla before the salah. Before you start the salah, you have to face the qibla. And you have to be facing the qibla throughout the salah. It cannot be a case now that in the first rak'ah you face the qibla, the second rak'ah you face another way. Now, you're not fulfilling conditions. Another condition, for example, of the salah is tahara. The person has to be in a state of purity. Now, so a person cannot now start the salah in a state of purity and then break the wudu but carry on the salah. Now, we know if a person breaks the wudu in the middle of the salah, he has to make wudu again, repeat the salah. So the shart is that it's a condition is something that is present before and throughout the action. واضح? جيد. Rukn is something which is required at different points within that action. Naam. So for example, a rukn in the salah is the qira'at al-Fatiha, recitation of Surah al-Fatiha. Naam. But we know that this is not done throughout the salah. The recitation of Surah al-Fatiha has a specific point of the salah. Naam. So that's the difference between a rukn, or a shart, and a rukn. What's the difference now between a rukn and a wajib? A rukn, a pillar, and a wajib, an obligation. What's the difference between these two? What's the difference? Similar to what you mentioned.
This is the one if you missed the wajib.
Yeah, but upon a condition though. So if you miss a rukn, if a rukn is missed out from the salah, for example, then it nullifies the salah, irrespective of the reason why the person missed it. So if a person missed a rukn, a pillar, and he missed the pillar due to, or he missed it deliberately, or due to forgetfulness, it doesn't matter the reason why he missed it, it's nullified that action. However, with a wajib, if the person misses the wajib deliberately, then it nullifies the action. However, if they miss the wajib due to forgetfulness, then they make it up. How? In terms of the salah, sajda sahw. Then the two sajdatain after the salah. Naam, this is how they make up the wajib. The reason why we're mentioning these is because now we're discussing arkan again, but arkan in relation to the hajj. Naam, arkan, pillars of the hajj. Naam. And so Ibn Qudamah rahimahullah, he mentions the arkan of the hajj. Now, what are the pillars of the hajj? So he mentions first and foremost the pillars of the hajj, the wuquf bi Arafah. Naam, al-wuquf bi Arafah, so stand in Arafah. طيب. وَالتَّوَافُ الزِّيَارَةِ, the tawaf of ziyarah, the tawaf which is done for the visiting. What does he mean by tawaf of ziyarah here? The tawaf of the visit.
mean Umrah?
You've got a Hajj. What is the tawaf of the visit? What's he referring to? Tawaf of the visit. Tawaf of ziyarah. No?
First one. Yes.
The first tawaf? Which one?
First get to the haram.
The first. You first get to Haram? When?
So that would be the Umrah.
Or the Umrah. But say if you're doing tawaf, say if you're doing Hajj al-Ifrad, there's no Umrah. There's no Umrah. Tawaf al-Ifada. So Tawaf al-Ziyara and Tawaf al-Ifada are the same thing. So sometimes we refer to Tawaf al-Ifada and sometimes refer to Tawaf al-Ziyara. Naam, but they're the same thing. And the same thing. طيب. What is Tawaf al-Ziyara? And so essentially the arkan of Hajj are the following. Al-Ihram, wal-Wuquf bi-Arafah, standing at Arafah, wal-Tawaf, wal-Sa'i. That's how many pillars? 4. Naam. So Ihram, it's a must in terms of doing Hajj. The Ihram is a pillar. So in terms of the Hajj, the Ihram is a pillar. The second pillar is Wuquf bi-Arafah, standing at Arafah. Why? Why is that a pillar? Why is standing at Arafah a pillar? Arafatul Hajj or بالعكس الحج عرفة. نعم الحج عرفة. The hadith of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam where he mentions al-Hajj Arafah. Al-Hajj Arafah. So due to this narration, we understand that the Arafah in of itself is a pillar. Now the Hajj in of it, the Arafah, the stand of Arafah in of itself is a pillar. And then the Tawaf, Naam, the Tawaf, Al-Ifada, and then the Sa'i that which is done after the Sa'i which is done after the Tawaf. And the Tawaf is done on which day? Of Dhul Hijjah? The 10th of Dhul Hijjah. Now, and the Sa'i? The 10th as well. Now, so it's all done on the 10th. And Arafah, of course, the 9th. Now, so these are the actions. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Then he goes on to mention وواجباته الإحرام من الميقات والوقوف بعرفة إلى الليل والمبيت من مزدلفة إلى نصف الليل والسعي والمبيت بمنى والرمي وحلق والطواف والوداع. And so here he mentions in terms of the wajibat of Hajj. So the wajibat of Hajj. And Ibn Qudamah mentioned 7. 7 from the wajibat. The first is the ihram from the miqat. The person assumes ihram from the miqat. And the miqat is where? Where's the miqat? The question is, my question requires another question. If I say where's the miqat, then the question you have to ask, of course, is who's miqat? Because the miqat is more than one. Naam, and it's dependent upon which direction you're coming from. Naam, depending on which direction you are coming from. Salam to them. And so, we discussed previously the miqat. For example, Dhul Hulayfa from Ahl al-Medina, or Juhfa. Miqat al-Juhfa is for who? Misr wa Sham. Naam, so Egypt and Sham. That Irq, al-Iraq. Naam. And نعم والميقات من البيت from their home يلملم for who? For Yemen. الميقات من البيت from the home. أهل مكة. People of Mecca from the home. نعم. طيب. So we have that. Then we have the second from his wajibat al-wuquf bi'arafa ila al-layl. يعني إلى غروب الشمس. نعم. Why is it mentioned here twice? Because we mentioned Arafah. Where did we mention Arafah before? We mentioned Arafah before in terms of the pillars. Now we said Arafah is from the pillars. Sahih? But now we're saying Arafah is from the wajibat. Kayf? What was the difference is mentioned? We said from the pillars is Wuquf Arafah. Naam. We said from the wajibat, Wuquf Arafah ila al-layl. What's the difference then? The timing. Naam. So, essentially, what some Ahlul Ilm they mentioned, here Shaykh Fawzan he mentioned as well, is that if the person stands in Arafah for some portion of the day, then he's fulfilled the rukun. He's fulfilled the rukun. Now that pillar. Because he has attended Arafah on the day of Arafah. However, if the person stands in Arafah and remains in Arafah until the Ghurub al-Shams, until Maghrib, then he has fulfilled the wajib as well. Now he's fulfilled the wajib as well. Because, as is understood, the hadith, al-Hajj wa Arafah, is is general. Na'am is general. For the one that attends Arafah. However, if we understand, and as we read through the hadith of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, his Hajj and the sifat al-Hajj and the manner in which he performed the manasik, the manner in which he performed these particular rituals of Hajj, then we understand from that, barakallahu fikum, mada, that the individual performed the Hajj until or performed the Asan of Arafah afwan until Maghrib. Until Maghrib. And the Messenger, and it's understood as well when we take the general hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where he mentions خُذُوا عَنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ. خُذُوا عَنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ. And take from me your rights, i.e. the rights of Hajj. Barakallahu fikum. So that's the second. Then we have the third. Al-Mubit bil-Muzdalifah ala nisf al-layl. Naam, the one that stays at Muzdalifah until the halfway point of the night. So we understand the halfway point of the night exactly the same as we understand it when we're discussing the mawaqit al-salah. Naam, or we understand when we're discussing the tawqit al-salah. So when we discuss the tawqit al-salah and the waqt al-salah, we say, for example, Salat al-Isha is from the ending of the time of Maghrib, Naam, so the reddening leaves from the sky, until the Nisf al-Layl, halfway through the night. Nisf al-Layl does not necessarily mean midnight, Naam, but Nisf al-Layl can be what? What's Nisf al-Layl? Half the night, meaning what though? The time directly between Isha and Fajr?
No, half of the night, so from Isha to Fajr, you work out half of that.
So what's from Isha to Fajr?
Yes, you work out half of that.
From Maghrib to Fajr. Naam. So half of the night from Maghrib to Fajr. The direct time between Maghrib and Fajr. Naam. So that's all of the whole of the night is from Maghrib till Fajr. Half of the night is the direct time in between the two of them. Right? And so when it comes to Al-Mabit in Muzdalifah, it's the staying until that time. Naam. And it's not permissible for the one to leave Muzdalifah before the Muntasif al-Layl. And so it's permissible for the person to leave thereafter. Naam. However, the afdal, that which is better, is that the person remains there. The person remains until Fajr. So he remains in Muzdalifah till Fajr. So that which is better is that the person remains in Muzdalifah till Fajr. However, it's permissible for him to leave from after then, halfway through the night. Naam. So, thereafter, it mentions As-Sa'i. As-Sa'i. بين الصفا والمروة. And so, again, Sa'i is mentioned as part of the Arkan. ليس كذلك? Sa'i is mentioned part of the Arkan. However, here it's mentioned as the Wajibat. With this is that it is indicative of ikhtilaf. So it's just illustrating that there's ikhtilaf in this affair. Some of Ahl al-Ilm, they regard that Sa'i bayna Safa wa Marwa is from the Arkan of Hajj, whilst others regard it as being from the Wajibat al-Hajj. And Allah Ta'ala knows best from what is apparent. It is from the Arkan, and that's the opinion of the Jamhur. That's the opinion of the majority of the scholars, is that it's from the pillars of Hajj. Now, so even though it's mentioned, Ibn Qudamah here mentions it as from being from amongst the Wajibat, it is actually from the pillars that we mentioned earlier. Now, as for the next wajib mentioned, the next wajib from his wajibat, which will be number what?
5.
Number 5? You sure?
Yeah.
If you take out Sa'i's 4.
Oh, you want to take out Sa'i?
Yeah.
No, so it's number 4. Number 4. Because remember, we mentioned Sa'i is going to be part of the Arkan. Naam. So, number 4 is Al-Mubit bi Mina. So, staying in Mina. And this is for the Layali Ayam al-Tashriq. So this is for the nights, for the Ayam al-Tashriq. So this is the 11th, 12th, and 13th night. Naam. And how many nights does the person have to stay? How many nights does the person have to stay? 2 or 3? 3? 2? So, you have the first night is when? Is that 11th or 10th, 11th, 12th night? The first night that they say it stays in Mina. 11th night. Naam, 11th night. Then 12th night. Naam. Then that's
If he stays,
so then he can leave after the 12th day. So then he can stay 2 nights essentially. Or he can stay from the 13th night and then leave on the 13th day. If we discussed this last week as well, if he stays for the 12th night and he decides to leave on the 12th day. Naam. However, the sun sets. He's still in Mina and the sun sets. What does he have to do?
Repeat the actions of the night before, the day before.
Repeat the action. So yeah, he has to. That means he has to stay in Mina. He has to stay in Mina, and then the next day he has to do the action of that day as well, which is what? The central action, essentially this one thing, which is? Salah has to be done every day. Until we die. Inshallah. The throwing of the jamarat. Naam, the throwing of jamarat. Taib. Throwing of jamarat. So this is the mabit bi Mina. It's from the wajibat. So then we have the fifth, which is the rami. Naam, the throwing of the stones, the stoning. Naam. If he leaves this off, he doesn't do it, فَعَلَيْهِ بِالدَّمِ. Now, if he doesn't do the stoning, then upon him is the dam, yani the slaughter. That's number 5. So the stoning. And the stoning is done how? How many stones? 7. 7?
Times 3.
7 times 3? So 21? So 7. No.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
Now, so then after we have the next rukun, which is the halq, the shaving of the hair. And when it mentions halq, the shaving, then of course what is inclusive of that is the taqsir as well, the shortening the hair. Naam. And this is from the wajibat al-hajj. And so the person may do so, as mentioned, fi ayyi makan, any place. So it's not specified that he does it in any particular place. Naam. Of course, for the one that is aware and they go on the Hajj or Umrah, they will see that there's specific places now that are facilitated. This is facilitated for ease, but it's not now said that it's specified here that you have to do the cutting here. Now, as long as the hair is cut, then this action is fulfilled. This wajib is fulfilled. And then the final one of our 7 is Tawaf al-Wada', the farewell Tawaf. And it's the final Tawaf And it was the final action that the Prophet ﷺ did before travelling and leaving Makkah. And this tawaf is an obligation upon all. Now, except for the one that has a legislated excuse. Except for the one that has a legislated excuse. And that would be who?
The elderly, the sick.
The elderly or the sick? Necessarily. If you're sick, then no, possibly no. The haid, no, the menstruating woman, or the forget, no, the one that forgets. The one that forgets? The one that has to forget has to slaughter, but they don't have a legislated excuse. They've forgotten. That's why they have to slaughter. Postnatal bleeding, no. So the woman that has the postnatal bleeding or the bleeding for the menses, then they have the excuse, they have legislated excuse not to perform this action. So those are the arkan and the wajibat of Hajj. Who thinks they can repeat them? Who thinks they can repeat them? The arkan and the wajibat of Hajj. Beginning with the arkan, of course. No.
So from the arkan, the first one is standing at Arafah.
Okay, stand at Arafah.
Tawaf al-Ifada.
Tawaf al-Ifada from arkan. See, in the corner of my eye, someone's shaking their head. Tawaf from arkan. Do about arkan now. Tawaf. Sa'i. And Ihram. That's Sahih. So we repeat them one more time.
So standing at Arafah.
Standing at Arafah.
Tawaf.
Tawaf.
Sa'i and Ihram.
Sa'i and Ihram. So which Tawaf?
I read the Ziyarah.
Ziyarah. Now Tawaf al-Ifada. So these are the four. The four pillars of the Hajj are al-Ihram, stand in Arafah, Tawaf, Naam, Tawaf al-Ifada, and Sa'i. طيب, Sa'i, those are the four. Then we said the wajibat are how many? 7. What are the wajibat? Ihram from the miqat. So, what's the difference between that and the rukn? We didn't mention that.
Timing.
The timing, we did mention it, did we?
We mentioned.
No, that's the timing by Arafah. But the ihram, sorry. The timing, naam, and the place. Naam. So a person, possibly, he could put on the ihram, so, but he puts on the ihram before Arafah. He puts on the ihram before Arafah and performs Hajj. He would have fulfilled all of those conditions, all of those arkan, should I say? Does that make sense? Because from the arkan is to where to be in the state of ihram, but it doesn't specify at which point. So, and this is what some people do. They will put on the ihram, yani, going into Yawm al-Arafah. And then they would start the Hajj. So, however, from what's the wajibat is that they should do it from the miqat. So the from the wajib is the ihram from the miqat. Now, second one. Second wajib. Stand at Arafah until the night. And the night is referring to Maghrib. Naam. Stand at Arafah until the night. The third one. Naam. Staying at Muzdalifah until
Halfway the night.
Nisf al-Layl. Halfway through the night. Naam. The next one. Naam. Staying at Mina for how many nights? 2 or 3. So which one's the wajib then? 2. Why? Because it's the least you have to do. The least that's required from you is 2 nights. So that's the wajib. And then that which is mustahab is, and that which is mujzi is that the person does 3. So the next pillar, next wajib, the stoning. Naam, the stone of jamarat, the 3 jamarat, throwing the 3 small stones 7 times. Throwing the 7 small stones at each of the jamarat, 3 of those jamarat. Now, so 21 in total. So, and of course, the reason why we specify as well that these small stones, the hasayat that I mentioned with the narration, is that there's people that oppose this. And they'll try to find the biggest stones that they can find to throw for shoes, for umbrellas, for anything they can throw, because they believe that they're stoning the shaitan. No, this is batil. So let's throw the small stones. So the sixth wajib. Naam, shaving the hair, and this is inclusive of what as well? Trimming as well. Naam, shortening. And then the 7th, tawaf al-wada', the farewell tawaf. Naam, except for if the person has a legislated excuse. Naam, and so these are the 7 wajibat. These are the four arkan and 7 wajibat of the Hajj and Umrah. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. I will conclude with that inshallah today. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, next week we'll go on to discuss the arkan and the wajibat of Umrah. Naam, the arkan and wajibat of Umrah. Inshallah. جزاكم الله خيرا بارك الله فيكم إخوان وصلى الله وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم بارك الله فيكم.